50% of the population employed. Fortunately, we were able to create over 20 million net new jobs since 1980. That's over a 20% increase in jobs. The population, however, only increased 12%. Right now, over 46% of the population is working. That's more than the entire percentage of the labor force back in 1980. As a matter of fact, if we had the same percentage of people working today that we had when we took over the reins, the unemployment rate would be 15%, and there would be 16 to 17 million people out on the streets looking for a job. Granted, there are a lot of people right now that don't have jobs, but there are a whole lot more that do, and more than have ever had jobs in the history of our nation.
You know, there's also been a good deal of comment during the course of this election about the state of the economy in the state of Arkansas and the so-called miracle that Bill Clinton has been able to work in Arkansas. You've been critical of the state of Arkansas to the extent that you have criticized Bill Clinton's policy in that state. Has there been a miracle in Arkansas?
You know, I think one of the things that surprises me about the media more than anything is there has basically been no investigative journalism in Arkansas to really see what transpired from the time Bill Clinton took over to now, to go back and say, how was it before, how is it now? So let's just look at a couple of facts, okay? When Bill Clinton took over in Arkansas, the percentage of, let's see, their personal income per capita, which is a very important thing if you want to determine how much money people were making, was right at 76.5% of the national average. You know, that was pretty low, one of the lowest in the nation, personal income per capita. So here we are 10 years later. You know what percentage the per capita personal income is in Arkansas today relative to the national economy? 76.6. In 10 years, he has increased the per capita income in Arkansas by 0.01%. Is that an economic miracle? I don't see why he can brag about this record. And I'll tell you a couple, you look at some other things too. That's important. Crime rates are important. When he took over, the state was 44th in the nation in crime rate. You know where it stands now? 30th. Sure, he went up, he increased, but I don't call that an improvement. For him to be able to say he's done a great job in Arkansas is ludicrous. And I'll tell you what, he'll probably carry the state of Arkansas in this election. But the reason is because the people in Arkansas would do anything to get him out of their state, even send him to the White House.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier in talking about jobs. Even if more people have jobs today, as you've indicated in your statistics, the case is often made that they are not really making as much money as they were before. Is that a fair comment?
Well, it's not, okay? I hate to be that abrupt and just yes and no, but it's not because, for instance, in 1980, if you take the per capita income that people were making, it was about, let's see, I forgot to look that up. We would actually have a graph to support that with. When we took over in 1983, about a little under 16,000 was the per capita income in the nation. Now it's 19,000. I'm talking about adjusted for inflation. So people are making more money adjusted for inflation than they were back then. But there are more things that are important than simply how much money you make in a given year. People don't understand how important it is to have low interest rates and low inflation rates. Let me give you an example. Let's say in 1982, you purchased a house. And it takes a couple of years from the time an administration takes over until you can really make the kind of changes that begin to bring the economy back into a more positive situation. But let's say that in 1982, you bought a house. You know what the average interest rate on houses were in 1982? 15.4%. So let's say you borrowed $65,000 to buy an $80,000 house. and you paid your 15.5% interest rate, you know what your payments would have been? They would have been $891 per month. That's pretty high income, and that's in 1982 dollars. Now, I have a chart here, and we would have a large chart if you want to use one that we could hold up. I have a chart here that shows a comparison going back to 1982. Had they had the same interest rates that we have today, about a little under 8%, the mortgage payments on a house would have been $473 instead of over $800. Now, from 1982 up till today, 1992, the inflation rate has averaged about 4%. And that same house, the $80,000 house, if you went and borrowed an 80% loan on it today, you would borrow somewhere around $95,000. Your note today would be $690. It would still be less than that $95,000 note than it was back in 1982 on a $65,000 note. If you were paying the same interest rate you were paying back then, instead of paying $691, you would be paying over $1,200. But here's the really scary figure. If the inflation rate had raged at the same rate that it was under the Democrats, do you know what that loan would be? It would be $230,000. You know what your note would be? It would be right at $3,000 a month. Now, sure, you might not have a tremendous increase in per capita income, but you can spend it so much better. You can buy so much more with it. There are more people who can buy houses as a percentage of our population today than there has ever been in the history of our nation. Never has the affordability index been so high. You know, I guess I have not done as good a job as I should have of really getting the numbers out. I kind of expected the press and other people to really go and look into it, but they haven't done that. But when you really look at the economy, sure, we got problems, but we got a lot of good things too. Inflation's at an all-time low. Interest rates at an all-time low. Stock market at an all-time high. Gross national product per capita, all-time high. Everywhere you look, we're doing pretty good. So I just think it's totally untrue to criticize our administration for doing such a poor job on economics.
Well, Mr. President, we're just about out of time. We've taken no commercial interruptions, but we appreciate your input, and hopefully this will provide some benefit to those of you who have input to the President as he prepares for his interview with Larry King Live.
Thank you. What do you think?